You know exactly how this goes, right? You're sitting at your desk.
Or on your couch.
Yeah, exactly, on your couch. And you pick up your phone to check um, just one message. Just one.
It's always just one.
Right. It's this quick task that should take, I don't know, 5 seconds.
Mm.
But then a few minutes later, somehow you're watching a short video about a guy renovating a tiny apartment in Tokyo.
Oh, I've seen those. They're mesmerizing.
They really are. And then, without even making a conscious choice, like you didn't decide to do this, you're suddenly watching someone's intense morning gym routine.
Right.
Then it's a clip from a comedy show you don't even watch.
Right.
Then a highly edited, really fast-paced recipe for a complicated lasagna that, let's be honest, you are absolutely never going to cook.
Never. Not in a million years. I mean, the ingredients alone would take a week to source.
Exactly. And nothing you're watching feels especially important, but, and this is the crucial part, none of it feels hard either.
Yeah, it's frictionless.
It really is. Time just sort of evaporates, 20 minutes and fully vanish. And then you finally look up, you remember the actual thing you were meant to sit down and do, that report, that email, maybe folding that laundry, and you feel this strange, distinct drop inside yourself.
It's a very specific feeling, yeah.
It is. The real task suddenly feels inexplicably heavier than it did 20 minutes ago.
Right.
It's not that the task is impossible now. It's just, I don't know, less appealing. It feels less alive.
And it is so much harder to begin.
Way harder. So if you're listening to this and nodding your head, you are definitely not alone. Welcome to TalkKast, by the way. Today, we're really getting into why this heavy feeling happens and how modern life is reshaping our motivation.
It's such a universal experience right now.
It really is. Okay, let's unpack this. Is this sudden resistance to normal everyday work a sign that we've all just, collectively become lazy? Or is there some kind of systemic shift happening in how your brain is being trained to perceive effort?
I am so glad you asked that because it is absolutely not a personal weakness. And I think that is probably the most important thing for anyone listening to hear right now.
That's a huge relief.
Right. You haven't lost your willpower. What you're experiencing is an environment problem. It's a design problem. Modern life is meticulously structured to train your attention toward what is immediate, what's easy, what's novel, and, what's instantly emotionally rewarding.
Like the tiny apartment videos.
Exactly. But difficult work, whether that's writing a business plan, studying for an exam, or even just having a challenging conversation with a partner, that usually offers none of those easy rewards at the start.
It's just hard right out of the gate.
Right. Real work asks for effort first, and it offers satisfaction much later. So when your day is absolutely packed with instant, frictionless rewards from your devices, that fundamental bargain of effort first, reward later just starts to feel distinctly unappealing.
That makes so much sense. So to really understand why normal work feels so incredibly dull after a scrolling session, we kind of need to look at what your brain is actually doing during that 20-minute phone vortex. Because it feels like we're just passively resting, right?
Yeah.
But we aren't.
Not even close. You are far from resting. And this brings us to a major misunderstanding about how our brains function, specifically regarding dopamine.
The famous dopamine.
Yes, the buzzword. Dopamine is so frequently described in popular culture as the brain's pleasure chemical. We tend to think of it as the reward itself, the actual feeling of enjoyment.
Like eating a piece of chocolate.
Right, but that's actually far too simplistic to be useful. A much better way to understand dopamine is that it's your brain's way of noticing what is worth pursuing.
Oh, interesting. So it's almost like a spotlight on potential. It illuminates what we should go after next.
A spotlight on potential is a perfect way to put it. It's involved in wanting, in anticipation, and the drive to move towards something. It's not just the enjoyment of eating the cake. It's the smell of the cake and the biological drive that makes you walk into the kitchen.
Okay, I see.
And what's fascinating here is how modern digital life completely exploits the maybe factor. Dopamine actually spikes highest when a reward is surprising or uncertain.
Wow, so the uncertainty is the point. I actually want to replace an old cliche here. People always compare phones to slot machines, which, sure, it makes sense. But I think a better analogy is fishing.
Oh, I like that. How so?
Well, if you caught a fish every single time you cast the line into the water, it would eventually just feel like work. It would be entirely predictable. There's no thrill.
Right, it's just a factory job at that point.
Exactly. But because you might catch nothing, or you might catch a massive record-breaking fish, you will stand by that river for hours.
That captures the mechanism perfectly. The unpredictability is the hook. Like, maybe there's a new message. Maybe someone liked your photo. Maybe the next video is going to be the funniest thing you've seen all week.
Or maybe it's just a boring ad. But you don't know.
You don't know, but it's just one swipe away. And this keeps the human nervous system in this endless loop of seeking, anticipating, and checking. You are basically standing by the digital river, constantly casting the line.
And what I find so interesting about this mechanism is how it relates to our energy levels. Because it's like being in a state of constantly being on. You can spend 2 hours online seeking that stimulation. But when you finally put the phone down, you feel completely unnourished.
Depleted, really.
Yeah, depleted. I like to think of it like eating a giant bag of incredibly salty junk food when what your body actually needs is a glass of water. You're consuming so much, but you're not actually quenching the underlying thirst.
Because you weren't resting. You were seeking. And seeking feels highly stimulating, but it completely drains your cognitive reserves without giving you any deep nourishment in return.
So we're just exhausted for no real reason.
Exactly. And this constant state of low-effort seeking leads to a really profound confusion in our modern lives. We're confusing two entirely different human experiences: quick pleasure and long-term satisfaction.
And those aren't the same thing at all.
They don't even travel together anymore. Quick pleasure is very easy to recognize. It's the fast, shallow relief of pulling out your phone during an awkward pause in a conversation.
Oh, we all do that. The elevator phone check.
Yes. Or it's the momentary burst of entertainment from a 15-second video. It changes your immediate state instantly, but it evaporates just as fast.
Whereas long-term satisfaction usually arrives much more slowly. And, it almost always arrives only after a period of discomfort. It's the feeling after you finish a really grueling workout that you desperately wanted to skip.
Right, or the feeling of finally untangling a complex idea for a project at work.
Exactly. The rewards of long-term satisfaction are undeniably less flashy in the moment. They don't give you that quick spike.
But they leave a strong aftertaste. They build your self-respect, they build coherence, and they build actual momentum in your life. But modern apps train your brain to become highly, highly responsive to quick pleasure instead.
Which creates a massive friction problem. Because the real world demands patience. But our digital world is entirely frictionless.
Completely frictionless.
You open an app, and the short videos are endless. They are deeply personalized to your exact tastes by an algorithm, and they have absolute zero stopping cues. You don't even have to make the choice to watch the next one. It just plays automatically.
It just flows.
So what does this all mean for us when we inevitably have to put the phone down and tackle something real, like staring at a blank document or trying to solve a complex problem at work after spending an hour in a totally frictionless feed?
It means that a normal, slow piece of meaningful work is going to feel emotionally silent. It feels dead by comparison.
Dead. That's a strong word, but it feels accurate.
It is. What you have to understand is that the task itself hasn't changed. Writing that document is exactly as hard as it was 10 years ago. What has changed is the calibration of your motivation.
Ah, so the baseline moved.
Yes. You've just spent an hour in a high-novelty, high-speed, perfectly tailored reward environment. After that, normal human effort feels underpowered. Stillness feels empty.
It's like walking out of a loud, brightly lit nightclub into a quiet suburban street. The street isn't inherently bad, but your senses are so overwhelmed from the bass and the strobe lights that the quiet feels jarring. It feels fundamentally wrong to your nervous system.
That sensory mismatch is exactly what is happening in your brain. And this lack of friction doesn't just make our work feel boring, it is fundamentally changing the way we work. We're seeing a massive behavioral shift from doing to checking.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's break down that shift. Because checking things, your email, your messages, the news headlines, the weather, your bank account, gives you a false sense of movement.
It mimics productivity.
Yeah, you're clicking, you're reading, you're clearing notifications, you feel busy.
But checking rarely creates deep progress. It fragments your intention. You end up living in response mode, simply reacting to whatever's put in front of you.
Just swatting at whatever flies by.
Exactly. And meaningful things don't live in response mode. If you're trying to write something good or build a strong relationship or read a challenging book, those things require continuity.
They need you to stay put.
They do not reward you every 20 seconds with a little ping of validation. They only reward you for staying. Scrolling trains the exact opposite habit. It trains perpetual option seeking.
Option seeking. So we're always looking for the next best thing.
Right. The subconscious rule your brain learns becomes, if this is not instantly rewarding, switch. If this gets difficult, defer. If this is emotionally flat, Look for a better stimulus.
Okay, wait, I have to push back there for a second.
Okay.
Because when we talk about deferring difficult things, we usually just use the word procrastination. And if we reframe procrastination as just a byproduct of this option-seeking training or as short-term mood repair, isn't that letting us off the hook a bit too easily? At some point, isn't it just a lack of discipline? Why can't we just power through it like previous generations did? Are we saying laziness doesn't exist?
It's a fair challenge, and it's a very common reaction when people first encounter these ideas. But framing it as a moral failing or simple laziness doesn't actually solve the problem.
Because it just makes us feel guilty?
Well, yes, but also, if it were just a matter of discipline, the people who are highly disciplined in other areas of their lives wouldn't struggle with this. Yet we see top-tier executives, brilliant students, and disciplined athletes all falling into the exact same avoidance loops.
That's very true. You see high performers staring at their phones just like the rest of us.
Exactly. Because when you sit down to do a hard task, you experience genuine psychological discomfort. You might feel uncertainty, boredom, self-doubt, or the fear of not doing it well. Those are deeply uncomfortable emotions to sit with.
Very uncomfortable.
So your brain looks for a way to regulate that negative emotion. You reach for the phone because it provides an immediate, guaranteed alternative to difficulty. It's available, it's familiar, and it gives you instant relief from that negative mood. It is a coping mechanism, not a moral defect.
So we aren't actually actively choosing between important work and unimportant distractions. We're choosing between feeling discomfort right now and feeling relief right.
Yes.
And our environment has just made that relief terrifyingly easy to access.
Precisely. The friction to access relief is zero. Think about a student delaying an essay. They feel the anxiety of the blank page, so they decide to watch just 10 minutes of a video to relax their mind.
And we all know how that ends.
An hour later, the essay is still unwritten. Or think of an executive avoiding a difficult confrontational email by refreshing the financial news. The relief is completely temporary. But here's the real tragedy of procrastination as mood repair. While you are experiencing that temporary relief, the avoided task is actually growing heavier in your mind. The longer you avoid it, the more psychological weight it gathers.
Oh man, that is so true. The task becomes this monster in the closet.
Yeah.
And we often try to bridge that gap with symbolic contact.
Yes, symbolic contact is fascinating.
Like someone who wants to get fit will sit on the couch and watch an hour of fitness clips instead of actually moving their body. Or someone who wants to read will consume summaries and quotes about books on social media instead of sitting with one long chapter.
It's a way of feeling productive without the friction.
Symbolic contact replaces real engagement, but it tricks your brain into feeling like you did something related to your goal.
And that symbolic contact, along with the constant option seeking, drains you. This brings us to a concept known as ambient drain. Even if you are not touching your phone, just having it sitting on the desk next to your laptop makes it harder to focus. It has a literal cognitive cost.
I really want to dig into the how of that, because it sounds almost magical, you know? To say a piece of glass and metal drains my energy just by sitting there.
Yeah.
But there's a very specific biological reason for this, right? It has to do with how the brain allocates resources.
It comes down to inhibitory control. Your brain knows the phone is there. It knows the phone contains an infinite stream of novelty, potential social connection, and relief from boredom.
It's basically glowing with potential.
Exactly. Because the phone is within your visual field or physical reach, a portion of your brain wants to pick it up. To prevent yourself from picking it up, your brain has to actively use inhibitory control to suppress that urge.
It's like a computer's RAM. If you have a background program constantly running that said, don't look at the phone, don't look at the phone, don't look at the phone, that program is eating up your working memory.
Yes.
You literally have less processing power available for the actual task in front of you.
That RAM analogy is the perfect way to visualize it. The ambient presence of a smartphone requires constant cognitive energy to not use it. Distraction isn't always a loud notification. Sometimes it's just that ambient hum of potential interruption.
Okay, so if our brains aren't broken, which is a huge relief, by the way, but are instead just perfectly calibrated to a highly stimulating, frictionless environment, what do?
We adapt.
But how? How do we intentionally reshape our environment to regain our focus? Especially when everything worthwhile seems to have this vast, boring middle section that we just have to get through.
We have to approach this practically, not punitively. The first and most crucial insight is this. Stop waiting to feel like it.
Stop waiting for motivation.
Exactly. We have been conditioned to think we need to feel motivated before we take action. But the neurological reality is that motivation doesn't precede action in these difficult tasks. It grows after engagement begins.
Oh, that's a huge shift in perspective.
If you were sitting there comparing the first 5 minutes of writing a complex report with the instant payoff of opening a social feed, the phone is going to win every single time.
Because the phone is guaranteed pleasure right now.
Right. The trick is to compare how each activity leaves you at the end, not how they feel at the start. You have to acknowledge the friction and, frankly, expect the beginning to feel like a slog.
And to take that a step further, we have to address the physical environment. We mentioned the ambient drain and the RAM analogy. To shut down that background program, you have to create physical distance.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Literally. You have to put the phone in another room when you are doing important work to recreate natural stopping cues. And this leads us directly to a really fascinating experiment that was done recently.
Let's talk about that experiment, because the methodology is incredibly revealing. They didn't just ask people to, try to use their phones less.
Because trying never works.
Right. Instead, the researchers took a group of participants and completely blocked mobile internet on their smartphones for 2 full weeks. Wow.
The participants kept the ability to make phone calls and send basic text messages, so they weren't completely isolated, but they had absolutely zero access to mobile browsers, social feeds, or video apps.
Just a 2-week block. That's a relatively short intervention,
A
really.
very short intervention. And during those 2 weeks, they measured several metrics. Continuous performance tasks to test sustained attention, daily self-reported anxiety scales, and even cortisol swabs to measure physiological stress.
And what happened?
The results showed significantly improved sustained attention, a massive drop in baseline anxiety, and a measurable increase in subjective well-being.
That's incredible. And the why behind those improvements is the most important part, I think. It wasn't just that they had more free time. It was that their nervous systems were finally able to downregulate. The constant cognitive load of inhibitory control was lifted, and the endless loop of anticipation, that fishing we talked about earlier, was broken.
Okay, I see.
It proves that constant access carries a massive measurable cognitive cost, and that your attention can recover remarkably fast when you simply slow down the stream of novelty.
The brain bounces back.
The brain is highly plastic. It adapts back to a slower pace if you just give it the environment to do so.
That makes a lot of sense. It means the damage isn't permanent. And to build on that physical distance, I think there is a huge psychological component to how we frame the work itself. We have to make tasks psychologically reachable.
Yes, breaking them down.
If your goal is to write a whole chapter of a book, the friction is massive. Your brain looked at that mountain of effort and says, too hard, let's look for mood repair. Let's look at the tiny apartment videos.
Exactly.
But if your goal is just to open the document and write 3 sentences, that is reachable.
It lowers the barrier to entry so that engagement can actually begin.
You aren't lowering the bar for the actual work, you're just lowering the toll to enter the highway.
Yeah.
Instead of a 60-minute brutal workout, just commit to putting on your shoes and stretching for 10 minutes.
The goal here is simply to trick your brain into pushing past that initial high-friction, low-reward threshold. Once you are 10 minutes in, the motivation usually catches up. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, if we take all these strategies, the physical distance, the reachable tasks, the understanding of dopamine, they all point toward one fundamental life skill that we have largely lost in the modern era. We have to relearn quiet.
Relearning quiet. What does that actually look like in practice, day to day?
It means consciously allowing for lower stimulation. Go for a walk without audio playing in your ears. Eat your lunch without scrolling through a feed at the same time.
Oh, that's a hard one for a lot of people.
It is. Let small gaps in your day remain completely empty. When you are standing in line at the grocery store, just stand in line. Let your mind wander.
Just exist without the need for input.
This isn't about performing some kind of digital purity or, being a Luddite. It's about actively teaching your nervous system that not every pause requires a reward.
Retraining the baseline.
Right. When your nervous system relearns how to be quiet, you will find it infinitely easier to return to deep, meaningful work. You'll start to notice the subtle but deeply stabilizing rewards of that work. A clearer mind, a steadier mood, the competence you feel, and most importantly, the self-trust you build when you do the things you told yourself you were going to do.
That self-trust really is everything. Because when you constantly give in to the mood repair procrastination, you subtly teach yourself that you cannot be relied upon.
Exactly.
Rebuilding that trust is a quiet reward,
Mm.
but it is deeply powerful. So to synthesize everything we've talked about today, the dopamine trap is not that modern life has fundamentally broken your brain. It's actually that modern life is incredibly ruthlessly good at teaching your brain exactly what to chase.
It's doing exactly what it was designed to do.
Right. Apps are designed to reward reaction. But meaningful work, the stuff that actually makes your life feel solid and worthwhile, rewards patience, feeds reward novelty, growth rewards repetition.
And real progress requires the willingness to stay with something long before it becomes rewarding.
The next time you feel that strange drop inside yourself, that heaviness when you look away from the screen and back to your work, remember? It's not laziness. It is just your brain asking to be retrained. Give it the quiet it needs.
Before we go, here is something to mull over that we didn't fully touch on today.
Yeah.
If our devices are fundamentally training our brains to expect a reward, a laugh, or a novel piece of information every few seconds, what is that doing to our human empathy?
Oh, wow. That's a heavy thought.
Think about it. True empathy requires us to sit quietly with someone else's pain without trying to quickly fix it or simply swipe away to a happier topic. As you put your phone down today, ask yourself, is your patience for other people shrinking along with your patience for difficult work?
That is definitely something to sit with. Thanks for listening to TalkKast.